Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. Today we're back with Bretonnia. They're going to be taking on the Vampire Coast, so let's get straight to it. Mass Blessed Field Trebuchets. Yes, indeed, Lady bless these trebuchets. We've got 4 of them, a whole bunch of men-at-arms, and Battle Pilgrims as well. Battle Pilgrims, one of the few matchups I think they're pretty decent. We've got 1 unit of Foot Squires supported by a Paladin here, Defenders of the Fleur-de-Lis, a couple of Archers, Wardens of Montfort, the Regiment of Renown, Yeoman Archers over on the side. The Vampire Coast, you can see we've got a whole bunch of Fell Bats, Deck Droppers, a Terror Geist. We've got some pole arms here, zombies with pole arms, no surprise there. A single depth guard, the Black Spot, a vampire with a pole arm, deck gunners, and more pole arms. So yeah, relatively straightforward. Deck dropper spam, interesting choice against Bretonnia. This is actually one of the few factions, well, there are some factions that I definitely wouldn't try the deck dropper spam against. This is one of them, because Bretonnia can potentially bring some powerful flying units. I actually have seen a couple people bring like mass, not the really expensive Pegasus Knights, but the regular like 1200 point ones actually can be relatively cost effective in this matchup given the right situation. But as it is right now, the Bats and the Terror Guys are going to swarm down, try and shut down the Trebuchets. The Trebuchets are actually shooting at the deck droppers here. You can see these are the handgun variant, and not too bad on those trebuchets. When they're able to make contact, they can definitely take down some models here. Prophetess is going to have to be very careful though. The crossfire is going to be pretty real. If all of these kind of focus fire on her, they could take her out very, very quickly, so she's going to have to be careful. The rest of the vampire force is advancing across the field here. She's also going to have to be careful not to come into range of the Black Spot as well. Very excellent pick in this matchup. AP missiles, anti-large AP, charge defense. Not the biggest fan of the regular depth guard here, but they should be able to cut up most Bretonnian infantry relatively well. The deck dropper build, you know, again, against Bretonnia, because they have the Pegasus Knights, and just in general, this is a matchup that's already pretty favorable for the Vampire Coast. I would say you're better off to bring a more ground-based missile strategy, and just kind of turtle up with a lot of halberds and anti-large and some crabs and so on, and just kind of sit back and cackle with your cannons. There's not a lot Bretonnia can do about that. Currently, though, these deck droppers pushing forward very aggressively, trying to take down that Prophetess, who has used a regrowth on herself to heal herself back up. Meanwhile, the Terror Geist also coming back here. The Terror Geist honestly should probably be supporting this frontline engagement. Meanwhile, you can see the infantry are getting engaged here. These Foot Squires, supported by the Paladin, will do very well at taking down these Depth Guard. Going to trade extremely cost effectively here. You can see those Depth Guards suffering pretty badly here to the overwhelming models. The Vampire should be able to come in and stabilize there. Meanwhile, Battle Pilgrims and Men-at-Arms getting engaged in the front line here. Men-at-Arms will do okay against zombies. They certainly will trade cost effectively there. Battle Pilgrims, as I said, this is one of the few matchups where I do think that Battle Pilgrims are pretty effective. They have a good missile block chance, reasonably good combat stats, and good leaderships. Plus, the Frenzy allows them to hold up against undead units a little bit better than your standard peasants. Meanwhile, the deck droppers getting mowed down by trebuchets. Never thought I would actually say that sentence, but you can see the deck droppers come over to try and shut down the trebuchets. They definitely understand, you know, this is the major threat to them. Unfortunately, these deck droppers have taken a ton of damage already, and being well out of range of that Admiral over there, who's currently kicking the crap out of the Paladin in the distance. They're not able to, get healed up by him. So potentially they're going to fly back over there and try and get some healing, but they did not actually take down and finish off that field trebuchet. So all 3 trebuchets still online despite everything. And again, the Terror Geist not supporting this frontline engagement. There is no, let's see, what's it called? Leadership support thing, the Grail Relic, that's it. There's no Grail Relic here supporting the front line for Bretonnia, so if that Terror Geist were to come over and start dropping some charges, in this pocket, he could potentially get some terror routes going. As it is right now, though, the Men-at-Arms, Foot Squires trading relatively well. That Paladin's going to try and disengage and save himself there. But the few archers that remain, we've got the Wardens of Montfort and these Pox arrows as well, firing in here on the deck droppers, doing some great counterfire work. And then here come the Knights Errant into the front line, the sole unit of heavy cavalry for Bretonnia in this particular battle. Definitely think that heavy cavalry is going to struggle somewhat in this matchup. You can see the Holy Wardens of La Maison-Tal also getting in here, and the Trebuchets starting to fire in the front line a little bit, or maybe just some overshots from the deck droppers there. But there are, yeah, the deck gunners and the black spot in the back line. The defenders of the Fleur-de-Lis going to try and push around and shut them down. Also dropping a quick charge, trying to support and bail out this Paladin here. Unfortunately, the Paladin having taken a ton of damage here, dueling with the Admiral. Going to rout off here. Fortunately for the Vampires, unfortunately for Bretonnia, there also is Deckhand summon here, bogging down a whole bunch of those defenders of the Fleur-de-Lis, and a very timely invocation of the Heck as well to heal up this pocket. Unfortunately, that does mean, I keep saying that, sorry guys, these deck droppers are going to get dropped though. They did not get that healing, so yeah, pretty bad situation there. The defenders of the Fleur-de-Lis charging into the black spot. The black spot should honestly just stand and fight here. The fact that they're trying to pull away means they're going to take free hits, and with their charge defense, anti-large AP, the best thing you can do when you're going to get charged by a unit of cavalry is just about face as quickly as possible and just take it right in the face. Of course, that charge defense only applies from the front and if you're braced, so in order to fully take advantage of that, you definitely want to try to make that the case. As it is, though, the defenders of the Fleur-de-Lis do get routed off. The support of the black spot there and these deckhand mobs, although very nicely played by Reginald Puggington, who's the one who submitted this replay, following up with the Battle Pilgrims here, getting onto the black spot and these zombies. So, you know, defenders of the Fleur-de-Lis, definitely a worthy sacrifice. Those black spot have taken a ton of damage there. You can see a very pitched late-game engagement here. Again, the Terrorgeist trying to shut down these Blessed Field Trebuchets in the back line. I understand what he's going for here. Unfortunately, the Terrorgeist really ought to be used in this frontline engagement where he could get some really cost-effective terror routes going. Very high-value unit, and, I mean, yeah, the Field Trebuchets, total investment's quite a bit, but keeping them shut down shouldn't necessarily be a priority when you're probably already going to lose the infantry fight anyway. There's not a whole lot of targets that are good now that the deck droppers are gone, so yeah. Don't know that I would really dedicate that much resources to shutting down the Trebuchet, but nonetheless, Foot Squires and Battle Pilgrims fighting in the front line here. You can see the Beast Slayers of Bastogne also going to come up and around, trying to keep themselves relatively fresh, of course, for when that Terrorgeist does decide to come over in the front line here. With all the summoned zombies, the balance power slightly in the favor of the Vampire Coast at this point. Bretonnia rallying these defenders here, again trying to shut down these missile units. The deck gunners did get completely shut down. The men-at-arms and Battle Pilgrims following up, trying to support. Again, the black spot can be very cost effective in this kind of a situation here where they're basically not quite one-on-one with a unit of cavalry, but let's see how the Coast player decides to take this. Puggington getting a nice side charge here, and unfortunately it doesn't look like the black spot were quite braced. They're going to take quite a bit of shock damage on that charge there, actually enough to send them into crumbling. Of course, then you can see once the bayonets come out, they are going to be able to drag down a few of those units of cavalry, and a point-blank shot there. Man, that was good stuff. They do stabilize their leadership and manage to survive that, so black spot still hanging on very cost-effectively there. But unfortunately, the Admiral starting to get a little bit isolated here. He's also just about at his healing cap. The Beast Slayers of Bastogne starting to work on him a little bit there, as well as some Battle Pilgrims. And yeah, the Terrorgeist finally realizing that he needed to be supporting this frontline engagement. Going to come try and bail out the Admiral here. Puggington's going to come in and just quickly interrupt with the Prophetess. Doesn't actually want to stand and fight, obviously, with her, but did manage to interrupt that breath attack momentarily, and then the Beast Slayer is going to go ahead and try and dodge. Let's see. Yep, looks like they're mostly able to dodge that there. So pretty good stuff so far. Black spot crumbling over in the corner there, still having survived everything. Going to turn and get maybe a couple more volleys here potentially, but they are very low. And here come. Oh, nope. Oh man, what a buzzkill for the defenders of the Fleur-de-Lis there. Just fell over right as they were about to get charged. But anyway, last few zombies over here crumble away as well, so now it's just the Terrorgeist and the Admiral. So we'll go ahead and fast forward a little bit through this late game engagement here as, yeah, the Terrorgeist trying to go after the Prophetess. Obviously, she's quite a bit quicker, so not going to be able to catch her. and then eventually just deciding to come to the ground to fight. Beast Slayers of Bastone are going to be very, very cost effective here. The rest of the unit's getting terrified away, but the Beast Slayers, because they're so healthy, they've got anti-large AP, they can just sit here and grind. There's an argument to be made that the Terror guys should be kind of cycle charging right now, but I mean, sportsmanship wise, it's probably better for your opponent to just stand and fight. But very nicely done there with that breath attack. Getting some good terror routes going, but these 2 Regiment of Renown Infantry, the Holy Wardens with their flaming attacks, and the Beast Slayers with their anti-large AP, able to work down that Terrorgeist over time. You can see the Admiral also at his healing cap. He goes down, the Terrorgeist gives up its leadership, and it's going to be a Pyrrhic victory for Bretonnia, and not a matchup where Bretonnia comes away with a win too often, but a pretty nice build here, and just so happens that the Vampires brought, I would say, a little bit of a, not the best build in this matchup. Certainly this build has a lot of merit in some other matchups, I would say. Things like the Beastmen, you know, there's an argument to be made for Dwarves as well, although you'll definitely face a lot of counterfires against the Dwarves. Basically, factions which can't bring an air force and also can't provide a lot of counterfire are really going to be where your deck dropper type builds shine. Obviously, Bretonnia can bring a good amount of counterfire, and they also can bring some very, very powerful and fast air units in the Pegasus Knights. Again, I think they could be potentially useful in this matchup. The biggest danger they would face would be something like crabs, and crabs are definitely a common pick in this matchup. You do see some Rotting Prometheans here because the charge defense and AP does make them very, very tanky, and Bretonnia generally struggles with those large armored units to a degree. But if you were potentially to bring like some Pegasus Knights, for example, and then maybe 1 unit of Hippogriffs to be able to take down the Rotting Prometheans, maybe you could go with the super heavy air force as Bretonnia and carry a win that way against the coast. But regardless, even just the counterfire with the trebuchets and the the poison archers and everything, able to deal with the deck droppers effectively enough. The Terror guys did end up getting 2 XP chevrons, but really ought to have been supporting that frontline engagement. I think the Vampire Coast player maybe could have won if he had used that Terrorgeist a little bit better in that front line. But as it was, 98 kills in the Depth Guard. Again, not the biggest fan of them. You're typically probably going to be winning against the Bretonnian infantry anyway if you bring like crabs and stuff. So I would rather, like again, I would rather trade these guys out for the crabs because they're good against cavalry and infantry in this particular matchup. Deck Gunners also not the biggest fan of, so I'd probably cut these 2 and bring a few other things. The deck droppers as well. Might as well just bring carronades instead, in my opinion. So let's go ahead and have a look here. Vampire Coast. So yeah, just in general, I mean, carronade's going to be the same price as your deck droppers with handguns, and these guys have long range. They can counterfire the trebuchets. They can take down enemy heavy cavalry. So something like that. Then you bring your polearm Vampire's Admiral. And what's he got? Zombie Summon, Invocation of the Heck, and of course, for me, I pretty much always bring Dance Kebab. I think he also had Van Horseman's Speculum, a pretty good item to bring. And then, yeah, obviously the zombies with polearm is going to be great here. The Black Spot, I definitely like that pick as well. I'm going to grab a couple units of the crabs as well to give that charge defense and, extra presence in the front line. And yeah, Bat's certainly a decent option. I'm also going to take a couple units of Scurvy Dogs to chase routing units, potentially get in the back line, get on skirmishers and so on. And from here you could do a few different things with the remaining funds. You could tank up on ethereal units are actually not as risky as you might think in this matchup, just because the Grail tier units for Bretonnia that have magic attacks are a huge risk against the overwhelming shooting of the coast here. So actually, I think that a unit of Sirens might not be terrible here, all things considered, although it is certainly risky, because 1 unit of Grail Knights and they'll pretty much do you in there. But you could do some other things. You could maybe grab like a Gunnery Wight, stick him up on the crab there, and just strip him down so he can give some extra ammo to the cannons potentially, or even just himself. You can also snipe out units, and of course the crab gives him some extra frontline presence as well. And maybe just grab even more zombies. I mean, there's definitely some different things you could do here. Almost have enough to grab the Tide of Skilled, but anyway, just some thoughts on this matchup. Very fun battle. Big thanks to Reginald for submitting that one. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.